The last species that made humans angry? We don't discuss them, Captain. Lisa Morris stood at the large viewing window of the Earth Coalition fleet ship horizon. The stars stretched out before her, cold and distant. Among them lay their destination, the Varsidian diplomatic station. Her reflection showed a woman with short brown hair and eyes that had seen too much conflict. She straightened her blue uniform and took a deep breath. "Captain, we're approaching the Varsidian station," said Officer Ben Harper from his console. "They've sent docking instructions." Lisa nodded. "Follow their protocol exactly. We can't afford any mistakes today." The Horizon was not the biggest or most impressive ship in Earth's fleet, but it was fast and reliable. For this mission, reliability mattered more than firepower. Humanity had only discovered the Varsidian Confederacy 8 months ago, and every interaction since then had been tense. "Lieutenant Powell, are you ready?" Lisa asked, turning to face her xenolinguist. Jack Powell looked up from his tablet. He was younger than most of the crew, with sandy hair and a serious expression that made him seem older than his 30 years. "As ready as I can be, Captain. Their language has unusual subtexts I'm still working to understand. There are patterns in their formal speech that suggest—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Well, they don't seem to view us as equals." Lisa wasn't surprised. The Varsidians controlled dozens of star systems and had technology far beyond Earth's current capabilities. Their ships were massive, sleek things that moved with impossible grace. From what little intelligence Earth had gathered, the Varsidians had been traveling between stars for over 2,000 years. "Keep listening for those patterns during the meeting," she told him. "I want to know if they say one thing but mean another." The ship shuddered slightly as docking clamps engaged. Through the window, Lisa could see the Varsidian station, a spinning ring of silver and blue metal that seemed to glow from within. It made the horizon look like a child's toy in comparison. Olivia Grant, the communications officer, suddenly frowned at her console. "Captain, I'm picking up encrypted transmissions between Varsidian ships in the area. They're not using the standard channels they told us to monitor." "Can you decode them?" Olivia shook her head. "Not yet, but the frequency pattern matches what we observed during that incident at Proxima Centauri, when they claimed to be on a scientific survey near our colony." Lisa remembered. 3 Earth ships had gone to investigate the Varsidian presence and had been warned away with barely disguised threats. "Record everything," Lisa ordered. "Send copies to Earth immediately." The diplomatic team assembled near the airlock. Lisa, Jack, and Dr. Kyle Rivera, their xenobiologist. Each wore their dress uniforms with the Earth Coalition patch, a blue globe surrounded by stars. "Remember," Lisa told them, "we're here to establish peaceful relations and trade agreements. The Coalition wants access to their faster-than-light technology. In return, we can offer raw materials and cultural exchange." "Do you think they'll agree?" Kyle asked. He was a tall man with dark skin and gentle eyes that had studied more alien species than most people knew existed. "I think they'll agree to something," Lisa replied. "Whether it's what we want is another matter." The airlock cycled open, revealing 2 Varsidians waiting on the other side. They stood nearly 7 feet tall, with gray-green skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. Their 4 eyes, 2 large ones and 2 smaller ones above, blinked at different rates. Both wore elaborate robes of metallic fabric that changed color with their movements. "Captain Morris," the taller one said in perfect English. "I am Ambassador Zex Tool. We welcome you to Varsidian space." Lisa nodded respectfully. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting, Ambassador. We look forward to establishing friendly relations between our peoples." The Varsidian made a gesture that might have been amusement. "Indeed. Follow me to the negotiation chamber." As they walked through the station's gleaming corridors, Lisa noticed how other Varsidians stopped to watch them pass. Their stares weren't curious or friendly. They seemed calculating, assessing. The negotiation chamber was a large room with a round table in the center. Windows looked out onto space where Lisa could see at least 5 Varsidian warships patrolling nearby. The message wasn't subtle. "Please sit," Zextel said, motioning to chairs that seemed slightly too small. After they were seated, the ambassador spoke at length about the glorious history of the Varsidian Confederacy, their technological achievements, and their generous protection of less advanced species. Jack caught Lisa's eye several times during the speech, giving subtle nods when he noticed the patterns he'd mentioned earlier. Finally, the ambassador got to the point. "We are prepared to extend our protection to humanity," he said. "In exchange, we require resource rights on 17 of your colony worlds." Lisa kept her face neutral despite her shock. 17 colonies represented almost a third of human-controlled worlds. "That seems quite one-sided, Ambassador. Perhaps we could discuss a more balanced arrangement. Earth can offer unique biological resources, art, music." The second Varsidian, who hadn't spoken until now, made a sound like stones grinding together. It took Lisa a moment to realize it was laughter. "Captain Morris," Ambassador Zexatul said, "you misunderstand your position. We are not asking. We are informing you of the terms of our arrangement." Jack leaned forward. "Ambassador, with respect, equal treatment is the foundation of any lasting relationship between species." All four of the ambassador's eyes blinked, rapidly. "Equal?" he repeated, as though the word was unfamiliar. "Your species has barely left its home system. You have no meaningful defenses against our technology. Equality is not possible." The meeting deteriorated from there. Every suggestion Lisa made was dismissed. Every question Jack asked was answered with condescension. After 2 hours, they had accomplished nothing except confirming that the Varsidians viewed humans as primitives to be exploited. As they prepared to return to their ship, Lisa's communicator beeped. It was Daniel Wright, their science officer, who had remained on the horizon. "Captain," he said, his voice tight with concern, "we've lost contact with 3 research outposts near the Varsidian border. All went silent within the last hour." Lisa looked up at Ambassador Zextul, who was watching her with all 4 eyes. "Is something wrong, Captain?" he asked, his voice smooth. "3 of our outposts have gone silent," she said directly. "Would you know anything about that?" The ambassador's skin rippled slightly. "Space is dangerous, Captain. Perhaps your outposts experienced technical difficulties." As they walked back to the horizon, Jack whispered, "He knew." "Did you see his skin change when you mentioned the outposts?" Lisa nodded grimly. "Get everyone on board. We're leaving as soon as possible." Once back on the horizon, Lisa called Earth immediately. "Admiral Bennett, the diplomatic mission was a failure. The Varsidians aren't interested in equal relations. They want submission, and I believe they may have attacked our research outposts." "Return to Earth immediately, Captain," Admiral Sam Bennett replied, his face grave on the screen. "I fear this is just the beginning." As the horizon pulled away from the station, Lisa watched the Varsidian ships tracking their movement. She had a terrible feeling that humanity had just met its first truly dangerous enemy among the stars. The last species that made humans angry? We don't discuss them. The emergency meeting room at Earth Coalition headquarters buzzed with tension. Large screens covered the walls, showing maps of human space and the encroaching Varsidian presence. Admiral Sam Bennett stood at the head of the table, his gray hair cut short and his face grim. Around him sat the top military and scientific minds of Earth. 3 weeks since first contact with the Varsidians, and we've already lost contact with 7 outposts, Admiral Bennett said. The Horizon was the last ship to have official communication with them, and their intentions were clear. Captain Lisa Morris sat halfway down the table. She had barely slept since returning to Earth, spending every waking hour compiling reports and analyzing the Varsidian encounter. "They see us as resources, not partners," she said. "Everything in their language and behavior suggests they consider us primitive." Admiral Bennett nodded. "We have more evidence now." He tapped a control, and the main screen changed to show grainy footage from a security camera. The scene showed humans in lab coats running as shadows moved across the walls. Then, tall figures with 4 eyes entered the frame. Varsidians, carrying weapons unlike anything humans had seen before. "This is from Research Station Delta, near Tau Ceti," Bennett explained. "They managed to transmit this before going silent. The Varsidians took 47 researchers captive." A woman at the end of the table stood up. Dr. Amanda Kelly wore a simple white coat over civilian clothes. Her red hair was pulled back in a tight bun. "Admiral, we've analyzed data recovered from a damaged Varsidian scout ship found drifting near Alpha Centauri," she said. "What we found is disturbing." She took control of the display. Images of human genetic sequences appeared, alongside Varsidian text. "They've been studying us extensively," Dr. Kelly continued. "Not just our technology, but our biology. They're particularly interested in our adaptability. The documents refer to humans as promising specimens with genetics that could be weaponized." The room fell silent. Then Lieutenant Jack Powell, who had been invited due to his experience with the Varsidian language, spoke up. "Their plan appears to be gradual subjugation," he said. "They want to harvest what they need from us, while maintaining the appearance of diplomatic relations. Based on references in their communications, they've done this before to other species." Admiral Bennett's fist hit the table. "We need to prepare for war. We'll dispatch warning buoys to all colonies and begin evacuating the most vulnerable outposts." "It may be too late for that," said Officer Olivia Grant, who had been monitoring communications. She looked up from her tablet with wide eyes. "We're receiving a broadcast on all channels. It's the Varsidians." The main screen flickered, then showed the face of a Varsidian. Unlike Ambassador Zexatul, this one had scarred skin, and all four eyes seemed to burn with intensity. "People of Earth," the alien said. "I am High Commander Vorteth of the Varsidian Confederacy. Your species shows potential as servants. Submit now, and we will be merciful in our dominion. Resist and face extinction." The message ended. A moment later, reports began flooding in from the colony on New Eden. 3 Varsidian battlecruisers had appeared in orbit and were decimating the defensive forces. "Get me visual," Bennett ordered. The screen switched to live feeds from New Eden. The Varsidian ships were enormous, at least 5 times the size of Earth's largest vessels. They fired weapons that seemed to bend space itself, tearing human ships apart without effort. "They're landing ground forces," someone reported. They're taking people, abducting civilians." Security footage showed Varsidian soldiers moving through the streets with terrifying efficiency. They weren't killing indiscriminately. They were capturing humans, loading them onto transport vehicles. Captain Morris watched in horror. "The Horizon is stationed at the edge of that system," she said. "We could—" "No," Admiral Bennett cut her off. "The Horizon is not a warship. You'd be destroyed before you could fire a shot." He turned to her, his eyes hard but pleading. "I need you to retreat and warn the other colonies. We need time to organize our defenses." Lisa wanted to argue, but the logic was sound. The Horizon could do more good spreading the warning than dying in a hopeless battle. Over the next hours, reports continued to arrive. New Eden had fallen completely. Over 15,000 colonists had been taken. Only a few hundred had escaped in emergency shuttles. "The Varsidians are moving toward the Procyon system," Intelligence Officer Ryan Cooper reported. "They'll reach it in approximately 3 days at their current speed. There are 2 million people in that system," Lisa said quietly. Admiral Bennett stood tall despite the weight clearly pressing down on him. "Then we have 3 days to evacuate as many as we can and prepare a defense." He looked around the room. As of this moment, humanity is at war. 6 months later, Captain Lisa Morris stood on the bridge of the Horizon once again. The ship had been retrofitted with the best weapons Earth could provide, though they all knew it wouldn't be enough against Varsidian technology. "Status report," she ordered. Officer Ben Harper looked up from his console. "Procyon evacuation is at 67%. Remaining civilian ships will depart within 6 hours." Lisa nodded. 6 months of bitter conflict had changed them all. 5 major colonies had fallen. Earth's forces fought bravely but were outmatched at every turn. The Varsidians advanced steadily toward the core human systems. "Captain, Lieutenant," Powell called from his station. "We're receiving a transmission from Mars base. Professor Eric Rodriguez says he's made a breakthrough. A spark of hope, however small, was welcome. Put him through. The screen showed a disheveled man in his 50s, clearly exhausted but with excitement in his eyes. Captain Morris, we've been reverse engineering Varsidian technology from captured equipment, Rodriguez said without preamble. Their shields have a weakness, a resonance vulnerability that occurs when they're hit with precisely calibrated energy pulses. Lisa leaned forward. You're saying we can get through their defenses? Theoretically, yes. We're building prototype weapons now. For the first time in months, Lisa felt something other than despair. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Powell had been heading a special intelligence unit. His team worked around the clock to decode more Varsidian communications. Captain, he said after the call ended, we've found something in their historical records. The Varsidians have eliminated or subjugated 17 other species. But there's a strange entry about someone they call the Unmentionables, a species they encountered and then never documented again. What happened to them? Powell shook his head. That's just it, there's no record. It's as if the Varsidians are afraid to even talk about them. As they spoke, on the front lines near Tau Ceti, Commander Nicole Foster was changing the nature of the war. Her guerrilla tactics had begun to slow the Varsidian advance. Humans were adapting, learning to use Earth's diverse environments to their advantage against the more rigid Varsidian military doctrine. We may not have their technology, Foster told her troops, but we have something they don't understand: unpredictability. The Battle of Tau Ceti would prove to be the turning point. Against all odds, Foster's fighters captured an intact Varsidian dreadnought. Inside were the complete schematics of the enemy fleet and confirmation of Rodriguez's shield vulnerability theory. Humanity finally had a chance. The last species that made humans angry. We don't discuss them. Professor Eric Rodriguez hadn't left the Mars research facility in 3 weeks. His clothes were wrinkled, and his beard had grown wild. But none of that mattered. What mattered was the device on the table before him. Try it again, he told his assistant, a young engineer named Judy Clark. Judy adjusted some settings on her tablet, and the small machine hummed to life. A shimmering bubble appeared around it, a miniature version of a Varsidian shield. Then, she activated the second device. It fired a pulse of energy that flickered with a strange blue light. When it hit the shield, the bubble wavered, then collapsed completely. Eric's tired face broke into a smile. It works. Send word to Admiral Bennett immediately. Across the solar system, on Earth, Lieutenant Jack Powell sat in a room filled with screens and databanks. His intelligence unit had been working non-stop to understand the enemy. Jack rubbed his eyes, which were red from lack of sleep. Sir, I think I found something, said a young analyst named Frank Wilson. It's buried deep in the Varsidian historical archives we captured. Jack moved to look at Frank's screen. What am I seeing? These are records of species the Varsidians have conquered or eliminated. Frank's voice grew quiet on the last word. 17 different alien civilizations that stood in their way. Jack scrolled through the grim catalog. Each entry was detailed, clinical, describing the strengths and weaknesses of each species, how they were defeated, and what resources were harvested from their worlds. Then he reached an entry that was different. Most of the information was missing or redacted. All that remained was a designation, the Unmentionables. Why is this one different? Jack asked. Frank shook his head. I don't know, but look at the date stamp, it's from over 300 years ago. And look at this symbol here. He pointed to a red mark beside the entry. This appears nowhere else in their records. I think it's a warning. A warning not to talk about this species, Jack murmured. But why? What could make the Varsidians afraid to even mention someone in their own private records? On the front lines, Commander Nicole Foster crouched behind a ridge of red rock on a planet the humans had codenamed Redoubt. Her dark skin was covered in dust, and a scar ran along her jawline from a close call 3 months earlier. Beside her, a scout named Peter Diaz lowered his binoculars. Varsidian patrol is following the same route as yesterday, Commander. They never change their patterns. Nicole smiled slightly. That's their weakness. They're too certain, too rigid. She tapped her communication device. All units prepare for Operation Sandtrap. Remember, we need that ship intact. Across the valley floor, 30 camouflaged soldiers acknowledged her order. They had dug themselves into the sand over the previous night, breathing through special tubes while waiting for this moment. The Varsidian patrol approached, 5 soldiers escorting a land vehicle that contained their precious scanning equipment. They moved with mechanical precision, following the exact path they had used for the past week. When they reached the center of the valley, Nicole gave the signal. Her troops erupted from the sand around the Varsidians. The aliens barely had time to raise their weapons before stun grenades detonated at their feet. The battle was over in less than a minute. Not a single shot fired from either side. Secure the prisoners, Nicole ordered. Get that vehicle back to base immediately. This was how humans were slowly turning the tide. With cleverness, unpredictability, and adaptability. The qualities the Varsidians had hoped to harvest from them were being used against them. Back at Earth Coalition headquarters, Admiral Sam Bennett received the reports from both Professor Rodriguez and Lieutenant Powell. His office was now a war room, with maps showing the front lines of the conflict. For the first time in months, there was a sense of cautious hope. So, Rodriguez has figured out how to penetrate their shields, Bennett said. Captain Lisa Morris, who had been called back from her mission to help coordinate the new strategy, nodded. Yes, sir. He's sending the specifications now. Our factories can begin mass production immediately. And Powell's intelligence? Bennett asked. More troubling, Lisa admitted. The Varsidians have a history of destroying species that stand in their way, but there's one they seem afraid to even mention in their records. Bennett frowned. A species that scared the Varsidians? That could be useful information, or it could be a dangerous path to follow. There's more, sir, Lisa continued. Commander Foster's guerrilla tactics are working. The Varsidians don't adapt well to unpredictable strategies, and her team just captured intact Varsidian scanning technology. For the first time since the war began, Admiral Bennett allowed himself a small smile. Then it's time for Operation Hammerfall. The next day, all human military leaders gathered via secure communication channels. The plan was ambitious but simple. Use the new shield-penetrating weapons in a coordinated assault on key Varsidian positions. We'll hit them simultaneously at these 7 locations, Bennett explained, highlighting points on the galactic map. They won't expect us to have overcome their shield technology. One general spoke up. This is still a massive risk, Admiral. If they adapt quickly, they won't, Commander Foster interrupted from her video feed. That's not how they think. They believe their technology makes them superior. They don't plan for failure. The Earth's combined industrial capacity was redirected to mass-produce the new weapons. Every factory, every 3D printer, every manufacturing facility worked around the clock. Civilians volunteered to help, working in shifts to create the tools. That might save their species. Meanwhile, Captain Morris was given a new assignment. The Horizon had been completely rebuilt with stealth technology reverse-engineered from captured Varsidian ships. It was now called the Defiance. Your mission is crucial, Captain, Admiral Bennett told her privately. While our main forces engage, the Varsidian fleet, your team will penetrate deep into their territory and sabotage their main staging area. Lisa understood what he wasn't saying. It was likely a one-way mission. We'll get it done, sir, she promised. Her new crew included Lieutenant Powell and several members of Commander Foster's Special Forces. They spent weeks training together, preparing for every possible scenario. The night before Operation Hammer, fall was set to begin. Lisa couldn't sleep. She stood at the viewing window of the Defiance looking out at the stars. Trouble sleeping, Captain? Jack Powell asked, joining her at the window. Just thinking about tomorrow, she replied. Everything changes one way or another. I've been studying more of the Varsidian records, Jack said quietly. About these unmentionables. There's something familiar about the description fragments I've found, but I can't quite place it. What do you mean? The few details that weren't erased, they remind me of something. Jack shook his head. It's probably nothing. As they spoke, across human space, soldiers prepared their new weapons, scientists made final adjustments to the technology, and Admiral Bennett sent one last message to all forces. Tomorrow we show the Varsidians that humanity will not be harvested, will not be subjugated, will not be erased. We fight not just for ourselves, but for the 17 species who came before us. Tomorrow we begin to turn the tide. Operation Hammerfall was about to begin. The last species that made humans angry. We don't discuss them. Operation Hammerfall began at 0600 Earth Standard Time. Across 7 different star systems, human forces attacked Varsidian positions simultaneously. For the first time since the war began, the aliens' shields failed under the precisely calibrated energy weapons developed by Professor Rodriguez. Admiral Bennett watched from the command center on Earth as the reports came in. The giant screens showed green icons representing human ships and red ones for the Varsidians. Around him, officers called out updates from each battle zone. Alpha Team reports Varsidian cruiser shields down. They're pressing the attack. Beta Team has destroyed 2 enemy destroyers with minimal casualties. Gamma Team has secured the moon base at Proxima Centauri. Bennett's face remained calm, but inside his heart raced. The plan was working. The Varsidians had been caught completely by surprise. Their unshakable belief in their technological superiority had made them careless. Meanwhile, deep in Varsidian space, the stealth ship Defiance slipped silently toward its target. Captain Lisa Morris studied the holographic display showing the massive Varsidian staging area. It looked like a giant metal spider web connecting several planetoids together. Approaching target, Officer Ben Harper reported quietly. Stealth systems holding. No indication they've detected us. Lisa nodded. Take us in closer. We need to identify the primary power nodes. Lieutenant Jack Powell worked at another console, scanning for communications. Their internal network traffic has increased significantly. They know about our attacks on the frontier. Good, Lisa said. That means their attention is focused elsewhere. The Defiance moved silently into position among debris orbiting the Varsidian facility. Lisa gathered her strike team in the briefing room. 12 soldiers in special black armor that would hide them from Varsidian sensors. Our mission is clear, she told them. We plant these devices at these 4 locations. She pointed to spots on the holographic map. Once detonated, they'll create a cascade failure that will cripple this entire facility. A soldier named Greg White raised his hand. What about our exit strategy, Captain? Lisa hesitated for just a moment. Once the charges are placed, we'll have 30 minutes to return to the ship and clear the blast radius. Some of the soldiers exchanged glances. They all knew the timing would be extremely tight, if not impossible. Any other questions? Lisa asked. There were none. Then suit up. The team boarded 2 small shuttles designed to look like maintenance drones on Varsidian scanners. They launched silently from the Defiance and approached different docking ports. On the massive facility, Lisa led the first team with Jack Powell accompanying her. As they docked and cut through the outer hull, Lisa kept expecting alarms to sound. But none came. The Varsidians were truly distracted by the attacks at the frontier. They moved through dark corridors, hiding from occasional patrols. Jack used a handheld device to guide them toward their targets. First location is just ahead, he whispered. They rounded a corner and found a large chamber filled with humming machinery. Lisa signaled 2 soldiers forward. They quickly planted the first device and activated it. A small light began blinking, indicating it was armed but not yet counting down. 1 down, 3 to go, Lisa said. As they moved deeper into the facility, Jack suddenly froze, staring at his scanner. Captain, he whispered, I'm detecting life signs below us, hundreds of them, but they're not Varsidian. Lisa looked at the readings. Human? Yes. Jack's face paled. I think this isn't just a staging area. It's a processing facility. Cold feeling settled in Lisa's stomach. Processing for what? The intel we gathered suggested they were experimenting on humans, trying to extract whatever makes us adaptable. Jack's voice was tight. I think this is where they're doing it. Lisa made a quick decision. Change of plans. Team 2 will continue with the original mission. We're going to find our people. She contacted the second team, led by Officer Ryan Cooper, and explained the situation. Cooper acknowledged and promised to plant the remaining charges while Lisa's team investigated the human life signs. They found an access shaft that led down to a lower level. As they descended, the corridors changed from the sleek metal of the upper levels to something that looked more like a prison or laboratory. When they reached a large door marked with Varsidian symbols, Jack translated, "Test subjects, Lisa's." Jaw tightened. "Open it." Inside was a nightmare. Hundreds of transparent cells lined the walls, each containing a human. Some were awake, pressed against the glass with desperate eyes. Others floated unconscious in strange fluids. "My God," one of the soldiers whispered. Lisa activated her comm. "Cooper, we've found human prisoners. At least 300. We need to change the plan." "What do you want to do, Captain?" Cooper asked. Lisa looked at the prisoners again. Some had recognized them as human soldiers and were now banging on the glass, hope lighting their faces. "We're going to free them," she said, "and we're still going to destroy this facility, but we need more time to evacuate." While Jack worked to decode the cell release mechanism, Lisa explored further. In a side room, she found what looked like a control center. Screens showed different areas of the facility, and one large display showed data in Varsidian script. "Powell," she called, "I need you here." Jack came quickly, and his eyes widened at the sight of the display. "Captain, this is their historical archive, a complete one." He moved to the console and began working. "I might be able to download it." "Is that a priority right now?" Lisa asked, thinking of the prisoners. "It might be," Jack said, his fingers flying over the alien controls. "I've been trying to understand who these unmentionables were that scared the Varsidians so badly. This might have the answer." Lisa nodded. "Make it quick. I'll help the others with the evacuation." While Jack worked, Lisa returned to the cells. The team had managed to open several, and frightened but grateful humans were emerging. "We need to move quickly and quietly," Lisa told them. "We have transport that can get you off this station." One of the freed prisoners, a woman with short gray hair, approached Lisa. "I'm Dr. Helen Ward. I was taken from the New Eden colony. There are more of us on level B4. They're doing different experiments there." Lisa sent part of her team with Dr. Ward to free the other prisoners while she coordinated with Cooper's team about the explosive charges. "We'll set them for a 2-hour delay," Cooper suggested. "That should give us time to evacuate everyone to the Defiance." "Do it," Lisa ordered. When she returned to the control room, Jack was staring at the screen, his face pale. "Captain, I found it," he said quietly. "I know who the unmentionables were." "Who?" Jack looked up at her, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Us. Humans. Or at least they look exactly like us." He showed her the images on the screen, beings that appeared completely human. But according to the date stamps, these records were from over 300 years ago. "That's impossible," Lisa whispered. "Humans weren't in space 300 years ago." "According to this," Jack said, "the Varsidians encountered a small colony of beings identical to humans in the Sirius system. They attempted to subjugate them, just like they're doing to us now." "What happened?" Jack's voice was barely audible. "These humans fought back with such ferocity, such creativity in their revenge, that the Varsidians were nearly wiped out. The survivors forbade any mention of the species that had almost destroyed them." Lisa stared at the images. Time travelers? A parallel evolution? Whatever they were, the Varsidians found humans once before, tried to enslave them, and nearly paid the ultimate price. "And now they're doing it again," Jack said. As they spoke, throughout human space, Operation Hammerfall continued. The tide of war had turned. The last species that made humans angry? We don't discuss them. The Battle of Alpha Centauri would be remembered as the day humanity took back its future. 1 month after Operation Hammerfall began, the combined human fleet, led by Admiral Bennett, aboard the flagship Defender, faced the main Varsidian armada. On the bridge of the Defender, Admiral Bennett watched the tactical display as hundreds of ships moved into position. Human vessels were smaller but more numerous, having been built rapidly in the weeks since Professor Rodriguez's breakthrough. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said his second-in-command. Bennett nodded. "Send the signal. Begin the attack." The human fleet moved forward as one. The Varsidians responded by forming a defensive wall, their massive battleships at the center. In previous battles, such a formation would have been nearly impenetrable due to their shield technology. But not today. As the two fleets clashed, the new shield-penetrating weapons did their work. Varsidian ships that had once seemed invincible now found their defenses failing. For every human ship lost, 3 Varsidian vessels were disabled or destroyed. Meanwhile, Captain Lisa Morris and her team from the Defiance had successfully rescued over 500 human prisoners from the Varsidian processing facility. They had returned to human space with their precious cargo, the freed prisoners and the intelligence Jack Powell had discovered about the unmentionables. Now, as the battle raged, Lisa led a small strike team in a stealth shuttle directly toward the Varsidian flagship. Intelligence suggested that High Commander Vorteth himself was aboard. "We're approaching the blind spot in their sensor grid," Officer Ben Harper reported. 30 seconds until we reach the docking port." Lisa checked her weapon. "Remember, our mission is to capture Vorteth if possible. We need answers." The shuttle docked silently on the hull of the massive Varsidian ship. Using cutting tools, they created an entry point and slipped inside. The corridors were dimly lit with a reddish glow, and they could hear alarms in the distance. "The main battle has their attention," Lisa whispered. "Let's move quickly." They encountered little resistance as they made their way toward the command center. Most of the crew was focused on the battle outside. When they finally reached the large doors leading to the bridge, Lisa deployed a device that Professor Rodriguez had given her. It emitted a signal that temporarily disabled Varsidian communication implants. 3, 2, 1, now, she signaled. They burst onto the bridge, weapons raised. Several Varsidian officers reached for their weapons but froze when they saw the humans had them surrounded. At the center of the bridge stood High Commander Vorteth. He was taller than other Varsidians, with skin that had a metallic quality and all 4 eyes glaring with hatred. "You think this is victory, humans?" he hissed. "This is merely a setback." Lisa kept her weapon trained on him. "Your fleet is being destroyed. Your processing facility is gone." "It's over, Commander." Vorteth made a sound that might have been laughter. "We have conquered 17 species before you. We will rebuild." "Like you did after you encountered the unmentionables?" Lisa asked. The effect was immediate. All the Varsidians on the bridge stiffened. Vorteth's 4 eyes blinked rapidly, and his skin changed color slightly. "Where did you hear that name?" he demanded, his voice lower now. "We found your historical archives," Lisa said. "We know who they were, humans from centuries ago. You tried to subjugate them too, didn't you? How did that work out?" For a moment, Vorteth was silent. Then he seemed to make a decision. "Not humans," he said finally. "Time-shifted humans. A colony from your future that somehow traveled back through time. We found them 3 centuries ago, a small settlement of barely 1,000 beings." "What happened?" Lisa asked, though she already suspected the answer. "We did what we always do. We saw potential resources and moved to claim them." Vorteth's voice had changed, carrying an edge of what could only be described as fear. "They seemed primitive at first, just like you, easy to conquer. But they fought back," Jack Powell said. "They did more than fight back," Vorteth hissed. "They nearly exterminated us. They had knowledge beyond their apparent development level. They knew our weaknesses before we even engaged them. They turned our own technology against us in ways we had never imagined possible." Lisa began to understand. "Because they were from the future. They already knew about you. Their revenge was total." Vorteth continued. They hunted us across 17 systems. Our mighty empire was reduced to a handful of ships, hiding in the darkness between stars. It took us decades to rebuild, and we swore never to speak of them again. It became forbidden even to mention the species that had brought us so close to extinction. Around them, the ship shuddered as another Varsidian vessel nearby exploded. Then why, Lisa asked, would you ever risk attacking humans again? Because we did not know you were the same species, Vorteth snapped. The records were purged, the descriptions eliminated, only the warning remained. His four eyes fixed on Lisa. By the time we realized the truth, it was too late. We had already begun. On the tactical display on the wall, they could all see that the battle had turned decisively in humanity's favor. The Varsidian fleet was in disarray, their formations breaking apart as more ships lost shield capability. It's over, Commander, Lisa said firmly. Surrender now and we can end this without further bloodshed. For a long moment Vorteth was silent, his alien face unreadable. Then finally he gave a gesture of submission. Send the signal, he ordered one of his officers. All ships, stand down. 1 month later, representatives from Earth and the remaining Varsidian leadership met on a neutral space station to sign the peace treaty. The terms were non-negotiable: complete withdrawal from human space, return of all captives, and reparations for the devastated colonies. As humanity began to rebuild, a curious thing happened. Alien diplomats from across the galaxy, many of whom had remained neutral during the conflict, now sought alliances with Earth. Their reasoning became clear through intelligence reports. Throughout the cosmos, species now whispered about humans, with a mixture of respect and fear. 5 years after the war, a group of young Varsidians visited a historical museum on their homeworld. A curious child noticed an empty display with only a warning marker. Teacher, the child asked, what is supposed to be here? The guide quickly ushered the group away. The last species that made humans angry, he said quietly. We don't discuss them. As humans expanded further into the stars, they carried with them not just the memory of their victory, but the strange paradox of how they had been both the victim and the savior of their own people. Somewhere in the future, a human colony would somehow travel back in time, and their defense against the Varsidians would become legend. And throughout the galaxy, would-be conquerors looked toward Earth and remembered the fate of those who had underestimated humanity's capacity for both forgiveness and fury. The last species that made humans angry? They prefer not to be discussed.